gentlemen, welcome to John and Kelly's wedding reception. That was awesome. Everybody gather around nice and close. Make sure you're in here where you've got a great spot to see. My name is Ryan. It is an honor to be your master of ceremonies and DJ this afternoon. Thank you all so much for coming out. Everybody hold on to that feeling and that energy, because in just a few minutes, John and Kelly are going to walk through this door and kick off the best celebration they have ever had, surrounded by everybody that they love the most. Yeah, absolutely. Now, before we welcome them into the room, there are some really special people right in here that they could not have done this without. I would like to give you some honorable mention and say hello. So would you please step forward or raise your hand or scream and shout when I invite you or say your name. Starting with Kelly's mom is Pamela Keebler. Now, how about a warm welcome for John's parents, John and Rebecca Johnson. Now, leading off our wedding party is John's brother, Tim. Tim is 7 years younger than John, and like all good younger brothers, was constantly stealing all his stuff. Now, his favorite things to pilfer were video game and computer equipment, so at least he targeted the good stuff. They were always fond of playing racing games together and, as all young boys do, tormenting their dear mother. Say hello to Tim Johnson. Next are Kelly's friends Samantha and Emily. Now, the three of them all played hockey together in college. Kelly and Samantha played Columbia hockey together, and they lived in New York City for a while, where they upheld a very active social life. Emily was the competing goalie at Bowdoin. She's always been the voice of reason, and Kelly thinks of her like an older sister. Please welcome co-maids of honor, Samantha Stewart and Emily Lestowski. This next couple has quite an amazing story. As you know, John and Kelly met through the miracle of modern technology. They're both in a place where they just wanted to have some fun, especially Kelly, who had all but decided that she was done with relationships and just wanted to take one more shot at enjoying herself with somebody fun. So when they connected online, they started off easy, talking through text, until they finally got the nerve to meet face to face. Now, it was a dinner date like any other new couple awkwardly meeting for the first time over a plate of sushi. John did his best to keep Kelly interested that night and just kept saying all the dumb things he could think of to keep her laughing. Now, as the conversation dwindled and the night came to a close, John wanted to be the proper gentleman and respect her boundaries. So, firm goodnight handshake. Kelly had to be the one to break the ice and go in for the goodnight hug. It was the safe kind of hug, the kind that was accompanied by a very polite but very non-committal, "This was fun, we should do it again sometime." She had no idea John would actually make sure that sometime happened. It's hard to miss the giggling, They each left that night secretly wanting a second date, but really doubting that the other wanted it too. But John made sure they got one, and this time, some of the formality was dropped, and Kelly showed up in her makeup and finest pair of sweats. By their third date, they channeled their inner teenagers and took to the mall. But as they were leaving, John's car mysteriously fell victim to a flat tire, which forced Kelly to drive him home, and what could be argued was a cleverly orchestrated plan just to get her back to his place. We spent the whole car ride trying to not judge the storage heap that she called a car. But in the end, the messiness was easy to forgive because he was really impressed she drove a stick shift. They're both really awkward people, and that night it took several games of beer pong for them to loosen up and have some real conversation. Kelly even kept score by writing all over John's wall, which she graciously offered to paint over someday. They continued to gradually get to know each other, and on March 30th, John's birthday, Kelly gave him the most romantic gift that someone could give in a new relationship: changing their Facebook status. It didn't take long for Kelly to realize that John had completely fallen for her. He'd wanted to say those three little words for so long. It was nearly a month that he was holding it in, and starting to get the vibe that she felt it too. but there was a fear of commitment and a desire to just keep things casual. And all she wanted was a little fun and didn't ever expect to fall in love. So he swallowed those words until one spring day, Kelly turned to him and said, "You know, I think I love you." She didn't make it easy for them to get there, though. She spent a great deal of time playing hard to get. John often felt like Pepe Le Pew chasing the elegant Penelope Pussycat, except that instead of an adorably charming skunk, Kelly had accidentally adopted a lost puppy. She tried to get nights to herself by going home to her parents' house to stay, and he'd follow her there as if that was the plan all along. She says she didn't know what clingy really was until John, but he says she just needed a little help understanding the difference between clingy and romantic. She even tried to break up with him once, saying, "This is too much for me to handle, it's not gonna work anymore, I need to be myself, I don't know who I am anymore." John soaked it all in, thought it over, after a moment said, "I hear you, but we're still together." For the record, John doesn't remember that conversation. Things got real for them very quickly. Just barely a year into their relationship, John got a call that his company wanted him to move to California. Florida would be really nice too. He had planned to turn that offer down though, because he didn't think she'd want to go with him. Kelly didn't take that lightly. When she heard John's reason for declining the offer, she read the hidden message underneath that said, "Your wants and needs matter, and I want to plan my future around you." Now, it was less than 2 months later that Kelly's world was completely turned upside down as she said goodbye to her father. And as her family confronted this new reality, she found herself at the most vulnerable place that she has ever been, and realized just how much she needed John to get through that time. How much he supported her through the entire spectrum of emotions that she faced, or as she called it, putting up with her temper tantrums. Reflecting on it, she realized that John was a presence in her life that she needed, and after getting Mom's blessing, John took that job, and Kelly followed him to the West Coast. Now, it took them a little while to adopt a life there because not only were they moving to the opposite end of the country, but they were sharing a place of their own for the very first time. And John was a terrible roommate in college. Was really, really bad at cleaning up after himself, and Kelly wasn't much better. So dividing up the domestic responsibilities was a bit of a challenge. Actually, they're still working on the whole cleaning up after themselves thing. But he noticed that every day she would find a reason to laugh. Laughter is really important to her, and that joy is infectious. He loves that she's always finding ways to improve herself, and she's very handy. She's very quick to fix anything that needs to be done around the house. In fact, some days he thinks she wants to put holes in the wall just so that she can fix them. She loves how smart he is. He always finds answers to problems, and thinks things through, and uses facts to form his thoughts. Or she'll tell you he's got a damn sexy brain. It's full of useless trivia like the peak output of a horse, in horsepower, not the other kind. She'll always feel grateful to him for the joy that is her career also. She's always had that little spark inside of her, telling her she wanted to be a dog trainer, something that she feels she was born to do. And it was John to kindle that spark into a raging fire, and now it's a career that she can't imagine doing without. So it was very clear to them that this was a forever kind of love, and marriage crept into their conversation. Kelly actually suspected John would propose for about a year before he actually did. He'd throw in a red herring every now and again just to throw her off the scent, like every time they'd go to a sporting event, he'd point up at the big screen and tell her to look and watch closely. She swore she was going to get proposed to in a sports arena. She kept asking him if he was ever going to do it because, come on, girls need a timeline for this sort of stuff. What she didn't know was that John had bought a ring and had been carrying it for about 6 months. Didn't really have a plan in mind yet though. Sports game was cool, but very cliche. So whenever they'd be in a situation where someone would get engaged, she would tell him whether or not that method was okay. So he still didn't know how he was going to pop the question, but he sure as heck knew how he was not going to do it. So in September of 2016, they took a trip to Disney, and he took the ring with him, figuring the right opportunity is going to pop up on this trip. He gave his mom the ring because the metal detector was sure going to throw him off and bust his cover right there. So mom can sneak through and deal with that after they're already through the gate. And once they get inside, the right plan reveals itself. They found a caricature artist and set up an opportunity for a portrait for themselves. They sat down opposite the artist so the canvas faced away from them, and as the artist's hands are passionately moving about its surface, the onlookers start to look and giggle a little bit. They sit casually in this touristy pose, and Kelly's starting to wonder what all the fuss is about. Why are people giggling? And as the artist finishes up, he turns the portrait around and reveals a picture of John down on one knee in front of Kelly with his arm outstretched. So she stares at it for a moment, wondering why he drew a picture of a pose that they clearly weren't sitting in. And she turned to face John and asked, "Wait, why are you holding a ring in that bit?" And as she turned to face him, there he was on his knee next to her with his arm outstretched, offering the ring he had been carrying for so long. Now he managed to get out the words, "Will you marry me?" To which she replied, "Of course." Satisfied with his plan, John got up, started to walk away, and just like their first date hug, she stopped him with a, "Wait, can I get a kiss first?" Since that day, life gets better for them all the time. They know they'll always be there for each other, no matter what. And in their future, they see a lot of travel and a lot of dog competitions. And tonight, they see a lot of dancing and making some unforgettable memories with all of you. So please welcome the dog trainer and the lost puppy who found his way home, whose journey together is only just beginning, Kelly and John.